Hello and welcome back to another movie review. Sorry if my voice sounds a little odd. I'm coming down with a bit of a cold. So I'm going to try and make these as quick as I possibly can, just because my throat's a little sore. I saw 3 movies tonight. Had an early day of work and went and saw one, was planning to see a second one after that, and second one managed to get out with enough time for me to see a third. So was finally able to catch up on some of the early summer movies that I didn't get to see. Unfortunately, my theater dropped Epic, so didn't get a chance to rewatch that one. I may go ahead and do a review on that one just based off of what I already saw of it, but I don't know. I may skip that one. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably record it, but whether or not I actually post it's a different story. Anyway, the first movie I saw tonight was This Is the End. From the previews, it looked pretty good. I was really looking forward to seeing it. However, after watching it, I don't know. It wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't really my cup of tea, I guess you could say. Some stuff Seth Rogen does and his crew I like, other stuff I don't. I liked Superbad, but I didn't like Pineapple Express, and this falls more in the line of Pineapple Express. Basically, the premise of the movie is what it shows in the preview. Seth and his friend Jay, I think his name is. I don't know his name. Jay comes into Hollywood. He's staying with Seth for the week or whatever. And then Seth, they're just hanging out, smoking pot, playing video games, whatever. Typical stoner crap. Then Seth goes, hey, we should go to the party at Franco's place. And Jay's like, I don't really get along with those guys. Those are your Hollywood friends. I'm your old Canadian friend from before you really got famous. I don't really fit into that. I didn't like Hollywood to begin with. That's why I moved back to Canada, so on and so forth. So Seth goes, well, I won't abandon you at the party. I'll stay right by your side the whole time. So they agree to go. So they go, and Jay is kind of a douchebag. Everyone at the party is being nice to him, trying to be friendly to him and accept him into the group. And he's just like, oh, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go over here type of thing, At one point, they're all just sitting around talking, and he gets up and goes, hey, I'm gonna go get some cigarettes, and asks Seth if he wants to go with him or whatever, so, they decide to get up and go, and then they're having a discussion about that, and, he's like, well, actually that comes later on in the movie, but they have a discussion later on in the movie about, you did exactly what you said you weren't going to do. As soon as we got to the party, you abandoned me. And then Seth's like, you're the one that went out for the one to go out and get cigarettes. Everyone was hanging out, having a good time, and you're the one that left, So that's kind of Jay's character through the whole thing. He's just a douchebag. He doesn't like the people, so he doesn't even try to fit in. There's a bunch of celebrities at Franco's party. Obviously, Jonah Hill's there, and Michael Cera's there, and the other guy from Superbad that played McLovin, he's there. Michael Cera's bit was actually pretty good. It's a short bit. He's only there until the apocalypse happens. But the scenes that he's in are actually a little bit longer and a little bit more funny than what they show in the preview. At one point, he's talking to the guy that played McLovin, and he just blows a handful of coke into his face, cocaine, and McLovin starts freaking out. He's like, "What are you doing? I've never done coke before. I don't know what I don't know what to expect. What am I supposed to do?" And so they're trying to basically Michael Cera's high off his ass and is just being a douche, and Jonah Hill's like, "Oh, just calm down, man. It'll be fine. It'll be fine." So they have their little moment. That was pretty funny. So they go out to get the cigarettes and stuff, and while they're out, there's like an earthquake, and then Seth gets knocked down or something, so he doesn't see what's going on, but Jay sees all the people get sucked up in the beams of light. And then when he's telling everyone at the party about it, everyone's like, "We didn't see any light. Everyone here is fine," and he's like, "Seth, you were there. You saw it. Back me up." And Seth's like, "I didn't see any lights," because obviously he was knocked down. So then they all decide there's another earthquake, and they all run outside. That's when they see the whole place is on fire, and then the sinkhole opens, and there's that bit from the preview. It plays out a little bit more than that. At one point, Jay's half hanging in the hole, and some other people are hanging in the hole, and they're like, "I can't hold on anymore." And he's like, "Give me your hand, I'll swing you up," and he's trying to be helpful and be nice to people finally. And when the guy reaches for his hand, he ends up falling anyway. So then Jay ends up climbing out of the hole on his own, gets in the house. So then they stock up on what supplies they have, and they're like, "Okay, we'll ration everything. We'll get through this." Then it turns out another guy, I forget his name. He's been in a lot of shit too. This other guy was sleeping in the bathtub the whole time. So he wakes up the next morning and just like cooks up this huge breakfast and kind of goes through all the supplies. So when they finally get up and they're like, no, stop, you can't cook all that, stop eating, that has to last us, and he doesn't know what's going on, so he's like, what the hell, I made you guys breakfast and you're being douches, and that's kind of his thing through the whole thing. He's just like, fuck the apocalypse, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat, I'm thirsty, I'm gonna drink. Can't think of his damn name. So that's basically the whole thing. The 5 of them are rational, and the 6th one is kind of the oddball out. Jay's trying to be reasonable with everyone and fit in. So then that's when Hermione shows up. She breaks her way in. She was at the party and somehow got outside and then found her way back. So they bring her in and they're like, it's cool, just stay here with us, everything's fine, we have food and water, we'll get through this. And then, Jay brings up the point that, there's 6 guys and 1 girl, and they're all like, what are you talking about, she's kind of like a sister to us, how could you bring up something like that? And she overhears them talking about raping her, so that's when she goes defensive and like starts attacking them, and so gives takes all their water and stuff. Then James Franco remembers that he's got like water in his basement, but the only access to the basement is to go outside, so they try to go outside and get it, and that doesn't work out. So then he's like, it's too bad we can't just tunnel through the floor, because it's literally like right underneath us. So then they tunnel through the floor. They finally get through, they get the water, and they're having a toast with their dinner, just a single glass of water, and they all toast it and take a sip, and the other guy, he just downs it, and then he gets up and pours another glass, and they're like, what are you doing? You gotta ration the water. So they finally have a meeting and decide that he's out, they vote him off the island, whatever. So he says, fuck you guys, I'm leaving, so he goes out on his own. Then Jonah gets possessed somehow. I forget what the hell happened there, but they're all sleeping, and this big random demon comes in and like rapes Jonah. And like all you see is this silhouette on the wall of this giant demon and his giant dick hanging out. And Jonah wakes up, and at first he's like, "Oh, I'm just dreaming, haha." And he's like, "No, this is really happening," but he doesn't try and fight it off or anything. He just lays there and takes it. So he gets raped by the demon, and then the next morning, they're going about their normal daily routine, and then he falls down, and they're like, oh, his low blood sugar, get him the Milky Way, because there's that bit with the Milky Way. So they're trying to get him to eat it. He won't wake up to eat it. So they're like, oh, we gotta chew it up and spit it into his mouth. So then they basically just keep like eating the Milky Way. And then Jonah wakes up and he's possessed, and he starts like talking in tongues and stuff. And they have the power of Christ compels you bit. I don't know what happened to Jonah after that. I don't remember him really being in the rest of the film that much. But anyway, they decide they got to get out of the house for whatever reason. Why did they leave the house? I know they went next door at one point to try and get more food, and they made it back from that. And then something else happened where they had to leave the house. So they're out wandering the street, and they run back into the other guy who they kicked off the island, or out of the house, whatever. Turns out he's a cannibal now, and he's got this whole group of cannibal guys with him. Channing Tatum makes an appearance. Probably the best role I've seen Channing Tatum in since he's existed. Not a big Channing Tatum fan, but his role in this was actually pretty good. So then they have that encounter with that guy. And that's when they realize that if you sacrifice yourself in a redeeming way to protect your friends and everything, then the rapture lights hit you and you're taken up to heaven. So they're all sitting there trying to do, what's right. And James Franco gets sucked up into the light for a second, and then he starts giving the other guy the finger. He's like, screw you, I'm saved. And then because he was a jerk about it, the rapture light turns off and he falls and gets eaten by the cannibals. But then it comes down to where it's just Seth and Jay left, and they're running through town, and Jay sacrifices himself for Seth, and then he's getting pulled up in the light, and he's like, Seth's like, I'm not going, why am I not going? And Jay says, take my hand, you can ride up with me. And that's when they get like halfway up, and then something starts to go wrong, and then another giant demon, I think it's supposed to be Lucifer at this point, is like walking around, and like he's gonna try to grab him, but he's having trouble getting a hold of him because they're in God's light. But Seth is like only halfway in. So then Seth was like, well, you gotta let me go, or it's gonna drag us both back down, and you deserve to be saved. So finally Seth lets go, and that self-sacrifice is enough to be the redeeming light. So he finally gets his rapture light, which rips through Lucifer. Then they go up into heaven, and the one black guy, I forget his name too, he's up there because he had got raptured earlier. He was the first one that got raptured out of him. And he's like, this is heaven, you can have anything you want. And then probably the coolest part of the movie was, I think it was Jay. He's like, they were like, wish for whatever you want. And then you hear the Backstreet Boys. And Seth is like, no way. And then all 5 of the Backstreet Boys show up, which is weird because one of them actually, when they reformed, one of them actually quit the group. The older guy with the mustache, I think his name's Kevin. I'm not sure. But anyway, he left the group when they reformed, and it was just the remaining 4 that had been touring lately. But I guess for the movie, they got him back as well. So all 5 of the Backstreet Boys are there in heaven. They do their number, and Seth and everyone else starts dancing around with them, with the choreographed dancing. And that's basically the end of the movie. It's just a big party in heaven. Overall, like I said, it wasn't a bad movie. Another little part why I mentioned Pineapple Express earlier is this is basically a sequel to Pineapple Express, because at one point they're sitting around with the video camera. Well, at one point at the party, James Franco and Seth Rogen are talking about, we should make a sequel to Pineapple Express, and they're like discussing what would happen in the movie. And then after the apocalypse hits and they realize they have a video camera, they low budget, like shoestring budget type of thing, film Pineapple Express 2, because the 6 of them are the cast members from the original Pineapple Express, I guess, so they do that. So that's kind of the whole thing with Pineapple Express. But yeah, this one just wasn't my cup of tea. If it hadn't been so much based on like stoner comedy, I probably would have liked it more. Um, when Seth Rogen's not doing stoner comedy, I don't mind him as much, unless it's the Green Hornet, in which case, fuck you, Seth Rogen. But we'll get to that later. The reason I can appreciate comedy from someone like Kevin Smith as opposed to Seth Rogen is because even though Kevin Smith developed this entire universe of characters around these two central stoner characters, the movies he makes aren't just stoner movies. It's not all about smoking pot. It's actually really in depth. The people have a lot to say. The characters have a lot going on, and they're overall really funny for the most part. He's had a few that were kind of but that wasn't really his fault as much as studios. But where Seth Rogen is just constant, hey, let's get high, hey, let's get high, oh, we're high, and I just don't like that kind of comedy. I mean, I'm not a stoner. I don't have a problem with people that are, but if that's all it takes to make you laugh is Seth Rogen going, then whatever. But and that's kind of where this one was. I mean, it had a little bit more going on. Like I said, there were a few parts that were actually funny that made me laugh a little bit. Not too much like laughing out loud, but a couple chuckles. Overall, like I said, it wasn't a bad film, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. As far as a star rating, I'll probably go about a 2.5. I mean, I would go a 3. I mean, it's basically a middle of the road movie for me, just because it's one of those stoner comedies, and even though it was funny, it just wasn't my thing. But at the same time, there were movies that I rated a 3 that I liked better than that. So yeah, we're gonna go with 2.5, but it'd be a high 2.5, pushing towards a 3. Would I recommend it? Sure, check it out. Like I said, it's not horrible, but I mean, if you're into stoner comedies, you'll probably like it. If you liked Pineapple Express, you'll probably like it. It wasn't nearly as good as Superbad. Superbad was fucking hilarious the first time I watched it. But it's not as bad as Green Hornet. Anyway, that's this is the end. I'll be back in a moment with the next movie that I saw tonight, which was Monsters University. So until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.